have breaking news. Newly sworn in South Carolina Senator Darline Nordone has decided to throw her name in the ring. She will run for a full Senate term. Will she win the Republican nomination? Could she go on to win the general election in November? We'll have more on that later this hour. And an explosion outside a New York City federal building, and now a man is in custody. Find out what federal officials say the man was armed with in just a moment. And he's back. Former first son Hunter Biden is back in the news, this time the outspoken and sometimes out-of-control son, announcing what he believes is his father's biggest mistake as president. That later this hour. And now women's tennis is in the news. The Women's Tennis Association is taking an extra step to protect the integrity of the sport. Find out how later in this show. Also, how much coffee do you drink? Is that healthy? Maybe even very healthy? The American Heart Association has that answer for you later this hour. I'm Greta Van Susteren. This is The Record. The war is getting fiercer. Now President Donald Trump vowing more strikes on Iran. This after 3 United States soldiers were killed and dozens wounded. This terrible news as Iran reportedly strikes a U.S. base in Jordan. Tomorrow, President Trump will attend the dignified transfer of our fallen heroes at Dover Air Force Base. Middle East correspondent Zach Anders is live in Tel Aviv, where it is 11:01 p.m. Zach?
Yeah, at 11:30 in Tehran tonight, where we are tracking reports of explosions, possibly the 10th consecutive night of U.S. strikes, although Central Command, the Pentagon, have yet to confirm any U.S. involvement. This is just through Iranian state media. We'll get to more of that in a moment. As you mentioned, we have 2 confirmed KIA soldiers in Jordan, a 3rd missing from an Iranian missile attack. They're waiting positive identification of remains. There's another soldier killed near a downed Iranian drone that was reportedly set for a controlled detonation, and this is in Iraq. 3 KIA in total, scores others injured, and the satellite images that are coming across of some of the damage from these attacks is severe. In the Strait of Hormuz tonight, the UK's Maritime Authority reports a Maltese-flagged vessel has lost power, is adrift right now and burning after taking a Iranian projectile. We don't have more details than that, and there's no word yet on the crew. Hours ago, Gulf ally Kuwait reports repelling another Iranian missile attack. 3 interceptions reported there since this morning. Bahrain's Ministry of the Interior reports activating their air raid sirens for the 5th time today. We don't have additional details there, but considering the caution that is being used by all the governments involved, trying to limit the amount of information that is flowing to the enemy side here, the Iranians, and knowing that U.S. installations in these countries are the target. We're also tracking unconfirmed reports through Iranian state media, as I mentioned, that there are fresh explosions in southern Iran as of a few hours ago. Still no word from Central Command, the Pentagon, as to the nature of U.S. involvement, but it does appear likely that we're looking at either way the 10th consecutive night of U.S. strikes, considering the president's words here earlier today that the Iranians will pay so dearly for their involvement in killing of these U.S. service members. We're also getting late word tonight that there's been another missile attack into Aqaba, Jordan. Why this is so significant, as of an hour ago, air defenses activated over this town, which straddles the Israeli border. It is essentially a border checkpoint town between the Israeli city of Eilat in the south and southern Jordan. What we're seeing take place there, it appears that there was no severe impacts or damage, but the Israeli defense minister today said that if this happens again, that Israel will respond in force. The attack just about 36 hours ago, the last missile attack into Aqaba, Jordan, had missile fragments and debris raining into Israel, and the Iron Dome was activated as a result of that attack. So again, within the last hour and a half, I should say, it appears another significant missile attack, although it does not appear to be any significant reports of casualties or damage on the ground as a result of Iranian missiles coming within a mile of the Israeli border. The question being here, when do we all get off this ride? Is this escalation going to keep going and going? Well, if Israel gets into the mix, it certainly would be a watershed moment for this conflict. Once again, seeing Iran fighting 2 adversaries. We're seeing an incredible amount of military movement in the skies right now, Greta. It is deteriorating, I would say, minute by minute on my side of the world, and it does not look like it's slowing down anytime soon. Greta.
Zach Anders in Tel Aviv. Thank you, sir. Former Deputy Commander of Central Command and former Navy SEAL Vice Admiral Robert Harward joins me. Nice to see you, sir.
Good to see you.
Where's this headed?
I think it's escalating, that's without a doubt. And it's striking to see a shot into Aqaba. As you know, that's a very tight geography where both Egypt, Saudi, Israel, and Jordan all share very tight coastline there. So that's targeting could have been at any of them, and it could be any of them going forward.
Is that targeted or accidental? I mean, because that's right a mile from the Israeli border. You drag Israel into it. We're into another chapter.
Yeah, they're all very tight, so yet you don't know at the end of the day who's helping with their targeting, the accuracy, but it's indicative of how this is expanding and why all the nations who are threatened need to be involved. To see the British involved in this shipping incident is indicative of their interest in the region as well as everyone else's.
Well, even a Maltese vessel is hit.
Exactly.
You know? Well, so we're the only ones shooting at Iran, right?
At the moment. Although Israel has been shooting at their surrogate, Hezbollah.
At the surrogates. Well, they always have in Lebanon. But as far as going into Iran, we're the only ones going into Iran.
Well, throughout this conflict, Israel has been striking Iran. They've been going after the senior leadership. At this moment, during the ceasefire, that was recalibrated.
But they've sort of stood down. I mean,
that's correct.
What I'm trying to say, they've stood down as a result of us. Are we capable of handling Iran alone? I mean, this is the 10th night in a row that we're hitting them. The videos are just extraordinary. But how long can Iran take our hits? Or how long can we hit them?
Well, we've been hitting them the whole duration. But no, the more is better. So the more partners, the more offensive capability we can bring. But again, let's not rule out the other components of this fight, the financial fight. Let's shut down their borders, shut down their air. There's just a lot more than Canada. While we focus on this military capability, there's more pressure we can bring to bear.
Well, they're also doing the same to us, though, because you've got the Houthis who are run by Iran. They're now shutting down the Red Sea, essentially, which was the other alternative for oil. So, I mean, they're playing that game, too, about the finances.
Well, they haven't done it yet, and that's always been a concern. But as you're watching the Iranians, they're hitting Jordan, they're hitting Kuwait, they're hitting everyone, which is indicative where everyone needs to be involved in this effort.
I don't intend to be so flip about something so serious, but is there any sense in calling this a conflict anymore? This is a war.
It is a war, without a doubt. And that's a dilemma when you have another war surging in Ukraine that requires the same sort of defense and offensive capabilities that we've been supporting. So it's a two-front war at this point.
Does Iran ever run out of missiles?
Yes, we have to ensure that
Iran
at the
does?
end of, without a doubt.
Before we do.
Well, capacity is an issue for both sides. So we have to be committed and make sure that that targeting is specific, that the intel is doing their job to make sure we stand. And there's a lot of additional steps we can take. Why aren't we offering bounties to Iranians who identify these sites as well as IRGC? So again, I think there's a lot more pressure that can be brought to bear on Iran.
Thank you, sir. Vice Admiral, thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Over the weekend, the New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani once again called for the arrest of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
I believe that Prime Minister Netanyahu belongs in The Hague. He's a war criminal who has been charged by the International Criminal Court. And what you will find is that is an opinion that is held by many purely because of what his actions have wrought over these last many years.
Today, President Trump took to Truth Social and posted in part, quote, Benjamin Netanyahu will not be arrested in any way, shape, or form while in the United States of America. He's fighting against the Islamic Republic of Iran, which recently killed 52,000 innocent protesters and has spent the last 47 years killing American soldiers and others, end quote. Pennsylvania Democrat Senator John Fetterman joins me. Nice to see you, sir. Why is Mamdani making these threats? He doesn't even have the authority to do this, I don't believe, to make an arrest like this.
He's a total clown. I mean, he has the authority to arrest Netanyahu any more than I would have the authority to arrest him in Washington, D.C. if he visited down in Washington, D.C. You're a mayor, dude. You know, pick up trash, fix some potholes, and really fix the homeless problem in your city, too. You know, you're way out of your league, and now this is irresponsible. But like I said, he's just a total clown, and it's just for clicks at this point. He knows that he has nothing actionable. Now, it's just pandering to the DS a communist and his friends, in New York.
Well, the Prime Minister is expected in the United States when the UN General Assembly opens again in September. So he will be here. And it's sort of interesting is that in the past, he's been unable to refuel his plane in countries that are signatories to the International Criminal Court. So he's been sort of strategic in how he gets here. I think he can now come all the way here without refueling. But I mean, so it is a lot of saber rattling towards the Prime Minister. He is expected to be in New York soon.
It's not even that. It's just a cheese ball running his mouth. That's the thing. He has, and again, the mayor does not direct arrests. The police, they enforce warrants. There is not a warrant that America is not part of the ICC. And now the leader of the ICC was accused of sexual abuse, just like Plattner in Maine. There's no standing. There's nothing here. And now he is just pandering, trying to sound like a tough guy and making these weird threats. He has no standing, and he knows that as well, too.
My colleague just reported that one of the missiles hit about a mile from the Israeli border in Jordan. That's getting awfully close to Israel. Israel has sort of stood down in the last couple of weeks while we had this ceasefire. Where do you see this war going at this point?
I see. I think it's entirely appropriate for the president to hold Iran accountable. Now that it just affirms that all Iran could ever do in this fire at civilians in Kuwait or in Jordan and other kinds of nations, and hopefully all those other nations see Iran exactly what it is. They are just nothing but chaos, and it's the only thing that they ever respond. And now I'm going to continue to vote against the War Powers Act as a Democrat. Now, let's not forget, we were there for the first reason. They have nuclear dust, and now every single Democrat wanted to hold them accountable for that. So what's right now I think is right, and hold Iran accountable. And I think I've watched all those videos that you're showing of all of their kinds of facilities being destroyed. I think that continues to weaken Iran. I think that's the right approach right now.
Well, the president's waging that war, looking at this from 35,000 feet, and you and I have often discussed this, you've got Democrats in the House, which, of course, you're in the Senate, who are trying to eliminate military aid to Israel. You've got the mayor of New York who now wants to arrest the prime minister. You've got students hitting the streets protesting. They're anti-Semitic. It is something that I asked you last week, how do we arrest this? But since we've last talked, it's gotten more escalated, this anti-Israel sentiment by a portion of the American people.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, the Democratic Party. Now, I don't know if you've seen that report in Axios. Jeffrey's letter, they flipped maybe that people were on the fence. They could have got, without that letter, they could have had 30 to 40 more Democrats would have voted against Israel too, without a doubt. And then that would have put that number around 150. Overall, the caucus is, I believe, 208, 9, or 11. I mean, so that could have been a significant majority of there. I've always warned that the Democratic Party is going to become more anti-Israel, and those numbers are going to keep creeping up every time that you keep running those kinds of resolutions. We've had the similar thing in the Senate. Sanders had things that were kind of simple, and now I believe 80% of us in the caucus voted against Israel.
I'm going to take the last word on this. I don't know. I mean, if you've seen that 47-minute GoPro videotape of Hamas slaughtering and killing Israelis, I don't know how you could vote some of the ways you
watched
can.
That. Yeah,
so
absolutely.
you know what it means. Yeah, I don't know how you could. I don't know how these House members, they need to see that video.
Oh, they won't. They won't watch it. They won't. Absolutely. If they would watch that, they would have to confront them what those animals really are and what they've done. And now these are the people that deny that, or there's even some that Israel deserves those things. So that's a fact. And this wasn't a secret video. Those animals filmed that. They were proud of it. They were celebrating it like they got a touchdown or something. They've accepted some of those calls. some of those people are calling their parents and yelling, "Oh, yes, we've killed Jews. We've killed the Jews." I mean, that's exactly who they are.
One called his mother, "I killed 10 all by myself. I killed 10," or something like that, bragging, and the mother was in on it. Anyway,
Yeah,
Senator John
absolutely.
Fetterman.
Yeah, and just like
Senator John.
Yeah.
Senator, thank you very much for joining me. Thank you, sir.
Well, thanks for having me on.
Coming up, former President Biden's son, Hunter Biden, is back in the news, and chances his father won't be happy with what Hunter is now saying. Plus, how military officials kept the skies clear during the World Cup final. That when the record continues.
This was America in 1980, held in contempt by foreign nations. Across the world, people were losing their freedoms. So many countries thought America had seen its day, but we knew better. So we stopped complaining together and started working together. Today, America is strong again. We're looking to the future with confidence and pride. America's best days and democracy's best days lie ahead.
Nobody knows Corvettes like McMulkin Chevrolet, the world's largest Corvette dealer for 5 consecutive years. Set apart by its name alone, Corvette delivers a legacy of American craftsmanship, and a vehicle that sets the bar for performance cars deserves a buying experience that beats it. With hundreds of Corvettes in stock and ready for immediate delivery nationwide, it's no wonder Corvette enthusiasts from across the USA keep coming back to McMulkin Chevrolet.
My dad had never been in better shape. Then he had a stroke and passed away. But he had life insurance. So even after he was gone, he was still taking care of us. Ethos.com, 10 minutes, 100% online.
Check your price today at ethos.com.
Forget the warm-up. DirecTV got hot. They're on fire with more MLB games than anyone. Welcome to the big leagues, kid.
How old are you?
11.
As America's largest private funder of brain aneurysm research, we support AI that enables earlier detection and saves lives. 1 in 50 Americans has a brain aneurysm, and ruptures strike without warning. Our early investments supported research that helped tech companies develop AI tools, enabling physicians to find aneurysms before they rupture. AI helps doctors act sooner and accelerates life-saving progress. Now is not the time to lose our competitive edge.
While you were getting ready for work this morning, or perhaps still sleeping, this person was seen igniting an incendiary device. This was outside a New York City federal building. Authorities say the device was a firework. Andrew Arabaca was arrested. He is also accused of firing an airsoft rifle at the building. Officials say the suspect is a former U.S. Army soldier who served from 2001 to 2005.
Mr. Arabaca came armed with bad intentions. I will say that 26 Federal Plaza has long been a target of extremists, of terrorists, and today the extremism was brought here. The building was attacked. Mr. Arabaca was looking to injure people and harm people. He had 2 axes, a hammer, a machete, and 3 knives.
Officials say the suspect is an anti-ICE and anti-government extremist. Charges are pending. 3 people, 2 government employees, and a civilian suffered minor injuries. Meanwhile, Hunter Biden, the son of former President Joe Biden, is back at it, grabbing headlines. His latest, his expressed strong opinion about his father choosing Merrick Garland as the Attorney General. Here's Hunter.
The single greatest mistake of my father's administration was the leadership of Merrick Garland. The reason that we are in the situation that we're in right now can almost, well, by the way, the buck has to stop with my dad. He was the president and he chose him. If Merrick Garland had started a completely 100% legitimate investigation rather than thinking like, let's not fan the flames, like what the, did you not watch what I watched?
Yeah.
Did you not see these people storming the Capitol of the United States of America?
Former federal prosecutor Joe Moreno joins me. Well, Joe, I don't think Thanksgiving is going to be too hot in that household this year.
I can't believe we're still hearing from this guy. I mean, the best thing I'm sure everybody would like on the Democrat side would be for Hunter to stop going on social media and just focus on his family or something else.
I sort of agree with him about Merrick Garland as being a poor choice. I mean, I think he was a poor choice. I'm still stuck on the fact the Fulton County Jail, Fulton County, Georgia, which is probably still under this Trump administration a disgrace, but he did nothing about that. So I don't think Merrick Garland was a great choice.
He wasn't a great choice. The Democrats chose him really as sort of a gotcha. Like, we couldn't get him on the Supreme Court in 2016 because Mitch McConnell blocked it.
Luckily, apparently.
Right. So I think it was like, well, we're going to come around and get you now because we're going to get him in the Department of Justice. So I don't think it was a well-reasoned choice. I think it was because pure kind of political gamesmanship. And then as far as him being sort of a moderate, he had this moderate persona. But the entire Jack Smith debacle, it wasn't that it backfired because it was too ethical, which is kind of what Hunter is intimating here. It's that it was hyper aggressive and it blew up in their faces. And so that's what they're upset about. It's that they threw everything in the kitchen sink at Donald Trump and he survived anyway.
I don't even understand. Going back to Merrick Garland's choice of Jack Smith as a special counsel, who went after, of course, Trump, that was a lousy choice anyway, because Jack Smith had gone after the former governor of Virginia, got a conviction on a stupid law. It went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court educated Jack Smith 9-0 and said it was a stupid prosecution and he didn't understand the law. And then Merrick Garland chooses the guy who doesn't know law to go after the president.
I think they thought they had a pit bull that would just kind of go, kind of full on to Trump. And I think this, first off, they didn't need a special counsel, right? Special counsels are required when a prosecution might be too lenient on someone, like a family member, not when a prosecution might be too aggressive. So it was never required to even have a special counsel. I think what they wanted, though, was this ability to sort of get out of answering tough questions. So when members of the media would ask a hard question like, President Biden, why are you bringing a classified documents case against Donald Trump when you yourself and Hillary Clinton got a pass? Or why is a case being brought during an election year in violation of Justice Department ethics opinions? And I think they would like to say, well, I can't answer that, talk to Merrick Garland. And then you'd ask Merrick Garland, and he'd say, oh, I can't talk about that because Jack Smith is running the case. And then Jack Smith would say, well, I can't answer that because I'm in charge of the investigation. And you go round in circles, and nobody would actually have any accountability.
I suppose that one of the reasons Hunter Biden doesn't like Merrick Garland is because there was a special counsel who prosecuted Hunter.
Yeah.
He probably would have preferred an attorney general who didn't appoint a special counsel to arrest him.
Make no mistake, the special counsel, David Weiss, in that case, did everything he could to drag his feet on the Hunter Biden prosecution. It was only when a couple of IRS whistleblowers popped up that he kind of forced his hand to indict Hunter. And I think the most egregious thing about that whole pardon spectacle wasn't so much that President Biden pardoned his son. We all knew he was going to do it. It was that he wasted 2 years and all those resources, all those federal agents and lawyers and David Weiss spending their time investigating Hunter, all of us being told he would see due process and the case would go, and at the end of the day, what does President Biden do? Pardons his son, retroactive.
And you forgot one part. He said he wasn't going to. You forgot anyway. All right, anyway, was Hunter Biden back in the news. Thank you, Joe Moreno. Thank you. And coming up, another sports league wants to make sure its competition is fair and equal. What league and how this will be done, that when the record continues.
Newsmax.
Shoots it straight. No talking down to me.
Don't tell me how to think.
Don't tell me how to think. Don't tell me how to think.
I trust Newsmax. Newsmax.
They don't tell me how to think. They let me decide.
Real news for real people.
Most people call leaf filter when their gutters are clogged and they notice one of the many issues that can bring. You can get ahead of costly damage by protecting your home's gutters today.
Schedule your free inspection today. Call 833-LEAF-FILTER or visit leaffilter.com.
I'm Yalmer Heinrich. I'm in the nutritional business, primarily selling plant-derived minerals. The world is sick due to a lack of minerals in our food, which is caused by a lack of minerals in topsoil. There is an incredible and proven nutritional product on the market that can overcome this problem. It's Immuno 150. Now, Immuno 150 is different, it's real, it's powerful, it's helped thousands. Now, don't hesitate any longer. Place your order for what may be the best food supplement in the world.
There's a reason
The wealthy don't keep all their money in one place. We work hard our entire lives to build wealth for retirement. If your retirement dropped 30% tomorrow, would you be ready? Or would you just have to wait and hope it comes back? The last thing any of us wants is to watch our retirement accounts shrink every time Wall Street panics, the dollar drops, or global uncertainty rises. That's why so many successful Americans turn to gold to help protect their retirement. And Preserve Gold is the only precious metals company I trust and recommend. Let me be frank, gold is not for everybody. And I do not give financial advice, but I do urge you to get my free wealth protection guide from Preserve Gold and learn about a special offer to receive up to $20,000 in free gold and silver. Education is power.
Text Newsmax to 50505.
Almost half of women runners say safety is their biggest concern. Majority of us have to constantly change routes, start times.
Instead of thinking of my pace, we worry about being followed, unwanted attention, and stuff that is simply scary.
Imagine this banana was a less lethal device, capable of incapacitating an attacker, letting you get to safety.
At Burnham, we don't sell bananas. Go to Burnham.com to find how you can always safely make it to the finish line.
Now, tirzepatide for weight management is available in a dissolvable tablet. It's not the injection and doesn't offer the same strength or clinical evidence as the injectable form, and results will differ from the injection. But for patients who don't want shots, this tablet option is worth exploring. Understanding results will differ from the injection. Tirzepatide tablets are a prescription that starts with a telehealth evaluation by a licensed physician who reviews your health history. And if it's right for you, they prescribe it. This might be worth a conversation.
When I started Walton Goggins Goggle Glasses, I didn't know how to turn all this fancy prettiness into a classy-looking logo. But GoDaddy Aero does, with its magical AI powers. It not only creates it, it slaps that sweet thing everywhere.
It's me, Ricky. You grew up with me. I am using Fatty 15 to get me to feel and look the best I've ever felt at my age. The C15 nutrient has been known to strengthen our cells and slow the aging process at a cellular level. I urge you to try Fatty 15.
In 1973, the second Battle of the Sexes tennis match took over the country and the world. In that match, Billie Jean King beat Bobby Riggs. There were 30,000 fans watching in the Houston Astrodome. An estimated 90 million viewers watched from around the world. They tuned in to watch the groundbreaking match. That match was agreed upon by both players, knowing they were of different genders. Now, fast forward 53 years to today. The Women's Tennis Association says it now has to protect its women's sport. The WTA says starting tomorrow, they will require all players to undergo genetic sex testing. Players will undergo a one-time screening for the SRY gene. That gene is involved in male sex development. The test will be done by a cheek swab, blood test, or saliva sample. The WTA now joins World Athletics, World Boxing, and the International Olympic Committee in testing for the SRY gene. Tennis great Martina Navratilova responded to this news saying, quote, "I played no part in this particular policy, but I'm very happy that we at the WTA are clear that we are a women's association and only women, as in females, can compete at the highest level of women's tennis," end quote. Candidate for the U.S. Senate from Minnesota and former NFL sideline reporter Michele Tafoya joins me. Nice to see you back. And it sort of seems like the WTA is sort of a little bit late to adding this compared to some of the other sports.
A little late, but we'll take it, and hopefully setting a precedent for many, many others, because there still are leagues out there that don't honor this, and I would include the Minnesota State High School League here in the state where I'm running for United States Senate, where a softball team with a biological male as their pitcher won the state championship a year ago. So I like this development. It's very common sense, Greta, and it's very simple. A cheek swab, spit in a cup, a blood test. It's non-invasive. I remember when they were trying to tell us how invasive this was going to be to women's privacy to have this test done. No, it's not.
Well, sort of an extension of the imposition of Title IX, which you and I have discussed this before, which was such a groundbreaking law for girls and women, for leadership, for health, for
Yes.
sports, for scholarships, everything. And so, you know, the fact that, you know, all these years later, now, you know, that's still, we're still sort of battling this, you know, for young people.
It's truly amazing. And I continue to see people protest this by saying, this is anti-LGBTQ, this is anti-trans, this is transphobic. No, it is not. This is pro-women. As you said, Title IX came about to make sure that women had the same opportunities in school, in sports that men did. And somehow we're kind of going backwards by saying, oh, some men can contribute or can participate and compete as long as they identify as women. That's simply not fair. It's just not. So this makes all the sense in the world. This is common sense. And I look forward to seeing more leagues follow suit.
Can you tell me a little more about this high school? I didn't know it. I want you to know that I was a star T-League pitcher in grade school. I got to put the ball on the tee. That was my job as pitcher. But I mean, you know, but tell me, there was a boy pitching in the girls?
Yes, the state championship in the softball a year ago. Softball is intrinsically a girls' sport in high school, right? Because the boys play baseball, girls play softball. And they're very similar sports, but in this particular case, the championship was won by a team that had a biological male who was their star pitcher. And none of the girls who were the opponents could hit this pitcher. They just couldn't. And so that team with the male pitcher wound up winning the state championship. I met a girl recently who was one of the opponents, who just still feels like opportunities were stolen from her and her teammates whenever they played this team. And it's true. I don't know how anyone can deny the basic reality of the differences between genders in terms of muscular, skeletal, attributes, etc. It's just different.
Michele Tafoya, candidate for the U.S. Senate, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. What is the real story with the lettuce linked to a parasitic outbreak called Cyclospora? On Thursday, the FDA told consumers not to eat shredded iceberg lettuce from Taco Bell restaurants in several states. And on Friday, the FDA linked the outbreak to the company Taylor Farms de Mexico. Then the parent company, Taylor Fresh Foods, said they were removing all iceberg lettuce that came from central Mexico. But there's a twist. Yesterday, the FDA said a lab test showed a sample tested was actually a false positive. That means it does not have the parasite. The FDA says there are currently no confirmed positive product samples for Cyclospora. So should you or should you not eat this lettuce? Right now, the FDA's website states, quote, do not eat recalled iceberg lettuce from Taylor Farms de Mexico. FDA's investigation is ongoing, end quote. The recall continues due to possible contamination, and the CDC says 1,600 Americans in 34 states have been confirmed to have the parasite. Coming up, follow the money, and it's often all about the money as we approach the midterms when Senate candidates are raking in the most money. And which party do they belong to? That when the record continues.
You know, everybody's reporting the same stories, the same spin. You turn the channel, it's always the same. But not us. We're different. We report the real news. No spin, just the facts. Turn to us, and you won't turn back.
Tune in to Rob Schmidt tonight on Newsmax.
Free yourself from prying eyes. Ask privately with Duck.ai. Visit Duck.ai to chat privately with ChatGPT, Claude, and other AIs for free, all in one place. Duck.ai is from DuckDuckGo, where AI is private and optional.
If your flow doesn't go like it used to, if it's pee o'clock again, it could be an enlarged prostate blocking the way. The UroLift system is a minimally invasive, non-destructive treatment for men 45 and over that simply lifts the problem out of the way. Ask your urologist about the UroLift system. Most common side effects are temporary and can include discomfort when urinating, urgency, inability to control the urge, pelvic pain, and some blood in the urine. Rare side effects, including bleeding and infection, may lead to a serious outcome and may require intervention. The UroLift system for rapid symptom relief.
There's no way a mouthwash can prevent bad breath for 12 hours.
You're right, Val. Mouthwash can't, but this is dentist-developed Smart Mouth Activated Mouthwash.
Activated?
Yeah, if your mouthwash isn't activated, it's not Smart Mouth. See, this plus this activate for 12 hours of bad breath prevention, guaranteed. Try it. You won't have bad breath in the morning. Good night, Phil.
Get dentist-developed Smart Mouth today. It's the smarter mouthwash, available at these fine retailers.
These days, supporting the right causes matters more than ever. That's why I chose Patriot Mobile. They're not just a great mobile service provider, they're all about giving back. Every bill helps support causes we believe in: family, faith, and freedom. You get great nationwide coverage on all 3 main networks. Even better, you're doing it with an American company that stands up for us. It's time to make the switch, y'all. Let's support a wireless company that's got our back. Go to patriotmobile.com and make the switch today.
At Omaha Steaks, we do burgers differently. We take a premium aged steak like this and turn it into a pure ground burger like this. So this is actually a ribeye. This is a New York strip, top sirloin, beef brisket, and this is a filet mignon. For a limited time, our Burger Perfection flight comes with 20 big, juicy burgers, all for just $79.99. Get it today at omahasteaks.com/TV. This is Burger Perfection, guaranteed.
Don't kibble your dog.
Hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
What's wrong with this?
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means they're ultra-processed. At Dr. Marty, we freeze-dried premium meats, fruits, and vegetables, and it's available at your local pet store.
I was tired of sitting on the sidelines. Now, thanks to Jointivia, I'm back in the swing of things. Wait, $70 for a refill?
You gotta try Single Care. Just look up your prescription, show the coupon at the pharmacy, and save.
Really?
Really. Single Care crushes the cost of my prescription, almost as much as I'm crushing Chad.
Unbelievable. See why more people are saving with Single Care. Common side effects include shockingly lower prices, excessive fist bumps, and humbling guys named Chad.
As is common in midterm elections, the party in power does not perform well. Republicans are hoping to reverse that trend, and Democrats are hoping they take back both the House and the Senate. And if you were to follow the fundraising money, Democrats have a huge advantage. According to the Federal Election Commission data, with the dates ranging from 2021 until now, the top 5 biggest fundraisers for all Senate candidates are Democrats. They are incumbent Georgia Senator Jon Ossoff, who has raised nearly $100 million, Texas State Senator and U.S. Senate candidate James Tallarico, who has raised nearly $70 million. Rounding out the top 5 are Ohio candidate and former Senator Sherrod Brown, and North Carolina candidate and former Governor Roy Cooper, and New Jersey incumbent Senator Cory Booker. Now, after weeks of intense political turmoil, Maine Democrats are now rallying around a new candidate. His name is Troy Jackson, and he is a former Maine Senate president. He is currently the favorite to replace Maine's Democratic primary winner, Graham Plattner. He left the race, of course, as you know, earlier this month after allegations of sexual assault surfaced. Plattner has denied all those allegations. Next week is Maine's Democratic nominating convention, and already Jackson has secured a majority of the state delegates. If confirmed, Jackson will face incumbent Republican Senator Susan Collins in the November election. Collins was first elected to the Senate in 1996. Meanwhile, the sister of the late South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham, now herself a senator, says she will run for a full term. Senator Lindsey Graham held the seat for more than 2 decades. Senator Darline Graham was sworn in last week to complete her brother's term in the Senate. His term ends in January. And now she's told a media outlet, quote, "I've made a decision. I'm in," end quote. Senator Darline Graham Nordone says the decision came after President Trump urged her to run. Last week, President Trump posted on Truth Social, Darline, quote, "has my complete and total endorsement in the special election for U.S. Senate in South Carolina. She will never let you down. Run, Darline, run," end quote. CPAC Chairman Matt Schlapp joins me, as well as former Special Assistant President Biden, Michael LaRosa. And welcome, both of you gentlemen. And we're just learning CENTCOM has just confirmed that the strikes for a 10th night in a row have been done in Iran. I hate to be so callous to ask about a political question about it, but what's the impact politically of this? Michael?
Well, I think the longer that it goes on, the better for the Democrats and the harder it makes for Republicans to hold both the houses of Congress.
Matt?
Depends on the complexity of this. Bombing is one thing. It's expensive, it's risky, but it's the next step. If the president draws the line in the sand, as he did with them not getting a nuclear weapon, that somehow we have to get all the nuclear components, and it looks like it's going to take troops, then I think that's a big difference from where we are today. And I think the president understands that.
Yeah. Maine, how's that Democratic candidate for you, Michael?
You know, two things that strike me. In one sense, he is not flashy, which is probably good compared to the guy who left the
For
race.
Maine, for Maine too. Maine's
he's not very flashy, but you know what? Most of the senators from Maine, if you think back to like Muskie and Bill Cohen and George Mitchell, Snow, even Collins, these are the kind of senators that are much more the workhorse and the show horse. They're not flashy. They're a little underwhelming. He kind of fits that, except he is delivering the same message as Plattner on the affordability, the Medicare for all, the abolish ICE, the class warfare, tax the billionaire stuff. So, you know, cuts both ways, sort of a different messenger, but different message.
Matt, is Susan Collins going to have a problem with him?
I think what Michael's trying to say is they're Mainers. They have a certain way of being, which I think is actually kind of likable to not talk so much and everything else. She's going to win the seat.
They work and don't talk?
Yeah. She's going to win the seat again. What is this, her 5th or 6th term? She's more moderate than I am. I've criticized her at times, but I got to give her credit. Nobody works harder than she does. And she matches the moment because Mainers are not far left, despite what people might think. And they had a Republican governor, and Paul LePage, not too many years ago, is pretty MAGA. And
you don't worry that the Mainers will think you've been in there long enough. 1996 is time for a change.
That's the negative
There's so many examples in history, and this is why I find politics interesting, where these long-time incumbents just get knocked off by just nobody.
Ingrates, basically.
Cale Boggs in Delaware, and Joe Biden, this newcomer in 1972, or Bob Packwood defeated Wayne Morse, and Dan Quayle and Birch Bayh. Sometimes these things have their expiration date, and events can precipitate that. And if there are enough people in Maine who are angry about what just happened with ICE up there, and emotions run high, he could be perhaps stylistically a replacement that people are willing to consider for Collins.
I just feel like the Graham Plattner thing made Mainers feel like the whole
You're probably
process was kind of nutty.
Yeah, we probably blew it.
You have a lot of nutty people in your party that are out there making endorsements.
We do.
And I think Susan Collins just kind of seems like a grown-up. Yep. And I think they might like that.
Absolutely.
I always say about Susan Collins, she's never done anything. She's the kind of senator, I've never done anything wrong in her life. She wouldn't let me cheat off her paper.
Well, and like
if I went to school with her, right?
Greta, you might not make 6 terms in Maine.
I wouldn't make 6 terms in Maine because I was always sort of looking at my neighbor's paper.
She's been on the Appropriations Committee for 30 years. She's the chair. She's brought back more pork than Robert Byrd, which was what keeps these people there for so long.
All right, one quick, is the new Senator Nordone is she going to win the nomination in South Carolina?
I mean, look, I have never met her, so I'm a little handicapped here. I wasn't the biggest Lindsey Graham fan, so maybe I'm handicapped twice. He was a good man, a nice man. I just thought he was too neocon, too interventionist, and I think
from the Bush White House insider.
Okay, I have some. That's true. It's a very fair charge, but I think she'll get a great sympathy vote. It tends to happen in these situations, and you know, I think she's got a shot. But let's see how she does on the campaign trail.
Matt Schlapp, Michael LaRosa, thank you both. Britain has a new leader. Guess who he called first? Find out when the record continues.
This is a bottlenose dolphin, and this is the breakthrough nutrient doctors discovered that helped some dolphins age healthier than others. It's called C15, and the more they had in their diet, the healthier they aged. Now, over 100 peer-reviewed studies later, Fatty 15 is bringing this discovery out of the ocean into everyday life to give your cells the same age-related benefits as all those happy, healthy dolphins. Fatty 15, healthy aging for all.
Where's the admission desk at your hospital? You may need it sooner than you think. It's the middle of the night and you, your spouse, or your child is sick, high fever, can't keep anything down, and getting worse. Now you're waiting in the ER, and everyone gets seen before you. And when I finally see you and order prescriptions, you still have to wait for your pharmacy to open and hope they have what I prescribed. This is the medical emergency kit. It's stocked with essential medications, including amoxicillin, generic Z-Pak, and ivermectin. Now you have the right medications when you need them. And it's why I and so many of my colleagues have medical emergency kits. It's like having an urgent care and pharmacy in your home. Just fill out a brief online medical intake and your kit, prescribed by a licensed provider, is shipped to your door. Here's how to order.
Order your kit now and save $45. Visit urgentcarekit.com/news. That's urgentcarekit.com/news.
Think you need a new roof? Think again. Most roofing companies only make money one way, by selling you a new roof. But what if your roof isn't worn out, just dried out? And with just a little love, you could put off an expensive roof replacement for up to 15 years, at a fraction of the cost of a new roof. Newsmax is a scientifically engineered restoration formula that brings your shingle life back to new. Scan the code and get a free roof tune-up with your Newsmax restoration.
Another lost summer scrolling and swiping? Another lost spring break? Turns out, the fix is right here. Create new lifetime memories from the comfort of your backyard. No passports, no reservations. Latham's premium handcrafted pools are ultra durable for any climate. Can be installed in weeks, not months. And have hundreds of designs, sizes, and colors to choose from. For 70 years, Latham Pool has remained the gold standard in bringing backyard dreams to life. Our pools are easy to care for, won't stain or crack, and never require costly resurfacing. And with flexible financing options, your dream is within reach. And with our crystal finish, you can bring your favorite exotic watercolor and shimmer right to your own backyard. It's never too early to start planning for a lifetime of memories. Visit LathamPool.com now. Latham is a proud sponsor of USA Artistic Swimming.
The United Kingdom has a new Prime Minister. Earlier today, Andy Burnham arrived at London's 10 Downing Street. There he was greeted by a large group of supporters, including Larry the cat who lives there. Here's what the new Prime Minister said to the crowd.
I am the 6th person in the last 10 years to walk up this street, the 7th Prime Minister since 2016. We will make this moment a circuit breaker for Britain, bringing forward the biggest changes in the last 40 years. Later this year, I will bring forward a new plan for Britain, a 10-year plan. Britain needs to show the world that we can regain our stability once again.
After his remarks, Burnham made his first call as Prime Minister. Who was on the other end of the call? President Trump. According to Politico, Burnham invited the president to Manchester for next year's G20 summit. The United Kingdom will be hosting the 2027 G20 summit. Trump said that he accepted the Prime Minister's invitation. Burnham was the mayor of Greater Manchester from 2017 to 2026. Royal commentator and journalist Josh Rom joins me. Josh, I hate to be so self-centered, but tell me, what difference does this make for the United States if this is the Prime Minister? Does it make a big difference to us?
I don't think it will, because fundamentally Andy Burnham is on the same side as Sir Keir Starmer, and that is Labour on the left, meaning that he still would probably share fundamental disagreements with the current president of the United States and the administration, especially when it comes to Israel. Andy Burnham has sent has put feelers out there that he wants to take a tougher stance when it comes to, in particular, trade with the West Bank. We have rumored members of his cabinet calling for tougher sanctions on Israel. So I think there's going to be continued disagreements when it comes to the Middle East there. However, there was positive news today. We saw Trump post on Truth Social after his phone call with Andy Burnham, praising the fact that the new Prime Minister seems to be quite open about granting new oil and gas licenses to drill in the North Sea. President Trump calling the UK, quite funny in a way, a poverty-stricken nation there. Andy Burnham wants to give hope economically to our country that has been in a constant doom loop. The President of the United States seems a little bit optimistic, but I know I can probably imagine what President Trump's feeling, and that's maybe a little wary.
He said he's going to have a 10-year plan. Do you think he really has one in his hip pocket, or is this just sort of politics talking? Because a 10-year plan is pretty ambitious, and there's a lot going on in the world.
Well, I think he has a certain plan. Not sure if it's a 10-year plan. I mean, let's look at Sir Keir Starmer's record. We had 4 resets in 2 years and multiple phases of government. It made absolutely no difference whatsoever. What we do know is that Andy Burnham wants to bring more powers to local government. He believes in a policy called devolution, which is more government on a local level, wants to bring more power back to local governments. He wants to move some of the number 10 operations up to Manchester, up to the north. So maybe he wants to build on infrastructure. What he did say today is he wants to end homelessness and rough sleeping in the country. That will probably be music to the ears of Prince William, who we know is very passionate about that cause as well. So we'll have to wait and see. However, I think a lot of his cabinet is, you've got Ed Miliband as foreign secretary. He was obviously previously rejected by the population in 2015 in the general election when he was leader of the Labour Party. You have Shabana Mahmood staying the same as Home Secretary. You have the former Defence Secretary, John Healey, put in as Chancellor. So it's probably going to be, I think, a little bit more of the same. And this kind of honeymoon period that Andy Burnham has right now, it's going to wear off pretty quickly.
And in terms of the king and his brother was in town last week. How are things there? We only have about 45 seconds left.
Yes, well, the king, of course, plays an incredibly important constitutional role in the transfer of power here. The outgoing prime minister tendering his resignation, and the new prime minister kissing the hands of the monarch, effectively swearing loyalty to him. So the king inside Buckingham Palace today, playing that really special constitutional role.
Yeah, it's always exciting to watch. And Larry the cat stays. He's outlasted a lot of prime ministers.
Well, yes, 7 prime ministers in the last 10 years, and Larry the cat belongs to Downing Street, not one prime minister. So Larry the cat is here to stay. Happy to say.
Good. Josh Rom, thank you.
Thanks so much, Greta.
And good news for coffee drinkers. According to a new study, it's now believed to be healthy to drink 5 cups of coffee a day. The American Heart Association, who conducted the study, released a statement. It says, in part, quote, consuming up to 400 milligrams of caffeine a day, which is equivalent to up to 5 8-ounce cups, is generally safe for most adults and appears to be linked to a lower risk of several cardiovascular conditions, end quote. Those conditions include type 2 diabetes, heart failure, heart disease, and even stroke. According to the study, adding sugar-flavored syrups, milk, and or cream to coffee can reduce its health benefits. Study also found consuming higher amounts of caffeine, like levels found in energy drinks, though, can also have a negative effect. How? Well, more than 400 milligrams of caffeine a day can increase your risk of high blood pressure and even irregular heart rhythm. Coming up, yesterday they partied with President Trump, and today they're having another party. Who and why? That when the record continues.
Hey, I'm Carl Higbee from Newsmax. Look, I'm unapologetically pro-American, and honestly, this is the one place that lets me call it how it is. I'm not holding back. I'll give it to you straight every single night.
I'm Elmer Heinrich, owner of Immuno 150, and I'm disgusted. Now, we do not sell on eBay, but 240 counterfeiters are offering counterfeit Immuno 150 on eBay. We copied our bottle label and even our website. Some of their junk has been known to contain talcum powder, baking flour, even ground up dirt. Zero nutritional value. None of it contains the 70 minerals that made Immuno 150 famous. These counterfeiters are after your credit card, and thousands of credit cards have already been hacked after they were used to purchase counterfeit Immuno 150. Now, we do sell on Amazon, but be careful, because some counterfeiters come on there too. The counterfeit websites look just exactly like our website. So to be safe, I suggest that you order Immuno 150 by scanning the QR code on the screen or by calling our toll-free number on the screen. Do this so you know you've got the original Immuno 150 with 70 plant-derived minerals instead of talcum powder or dirt. Thank you and God bless.
Kevin Sorbo here, and I have an important message to share. The government needs more money, your money. If you owe the IRS back taxes, they can garnish your wages and levy your bank accounts. They can even seize your retirement or take your home. Don't let the IRS target you. Call the professionals at Tax Network USA. Their tax lawyers and enrolled agents are experts in powerful programs that may even help you eliminate your tax debt.
Call for a free consultation or visit tnusa.com.
This is a paid advertisement for legal services. If you or a loved one has mesothelioma or any other asbestos-related cancer, call now. Asbestos manufacturers sold deadly asbestos materials to thousands of companies, putting workers at risk. An estimated $30 billion in court-ordered trusts have been set aside to pay out claims to asbestos victims. You may be entitled to a portion of these funds and receive compensation without filing a lawsuit or ever going to court. For your free legal consultation, call 1-800-306-1979. That's 1-800-306-1979.
Your mouthwash routine just got a whole lot smarter. Use Smart Mouth Activated Morning Mouthwash with B12 for all-day bad breath prevention, guaranteed. If your mouthwash isn't activated, it's not Smart Mouth. Kickstart your morning. Get Smart Mouth Activated Mouthwash with B12.
You clean your dog, your kid, your carpet, clothes, and fridge. Keeping your home clean is smart. Switching your home air filter to PureFlow? Brilliant. PureFlow's 4-stage filtration traps pollen, dust, and common allergens, giving your family superior indoor air quality and superior airflow. Nothing feels better than a clean house. And fresh, clean air. Switch now to PureFlow air filters. Go to pureflowair.com to find yours today.
Honey, Mortgage Bunny 6 says we should keep renting.
Mortgage Bunny 6?
Reba says more realtor agents recommend Realtor.com. They track every market so you know when to make your move.
He also says that Bigfoot... Got it.
Make it real with Realtor.com.
My dad has never been in better shape. He had a stroke and passed away. He had a life insurance policy. Ethos.com. In 10 minutes, you can be covered with life insurance.
Check your price today at ethos.com.
Satellite internet that's fast, reliable, and installed by professionals. For work, for play, for every day. Available anywhere you call home. Visit Viasat.com/internet now or call 833-8Viasat to sign up today.
After a month of excitement, the World Cup has come to an end, and today the champions returned home to Spain. On the left, you're looking at a live shot in Madrid. They're still partying. On the right is from earlier. The team paraded its trophy through the streets of Madrid. Thousands flooded the streets to celebrate the second ever World Cup victory for their men's team. The last time was 2010. Yesterday, Spain beat the defending champions Argentina 1-0. That was after 90 minutes of regulation time and then 30 minutes of overtime. President Trump was one of the first to celebrate with the team. After watching the game, he went on the field to present them with their trophy. He then returned to Washington and spoke to reporters about the tournament.
This was one of the greatest events of any kind ever held. So we're really happy that it did so well. And all over the world, people have come and they've loved our country. You know, shown off our country in a different light. And it was a great thing. It was a great event.
The next Men's World Cup will be 2030. The champions, Spain, will be a co-host. They will also play games in Portugal, Morocco, Uruguay, Argentina, and Paraguay. And do not forget, I have a podcast called Greta. While you like it, it's free. It's different. You can subscribe now on your favorite podcast app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or at newsmax.com/listen. Thank you for watching. Ed Henry, The Big Take, is next. Stay with Newsmax.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.